Have you ever poured everything you had into something, prayed every night, worked every day, sacrificed what you loved, and still watched it fall apart? You stood there among the broken pieces of your dream and asked, God, what did I do wrong? Why did you allow this? There was a young man named Daniel Carter who lived in a quiet American town called Willow Creek, surrounded by golden wheat fields and dusty country roads. Daniel was not born into comfort. His father died when he was only 13, leaving his mother, Helen, and two younger siblings in a small wooden house near the edge of town. From that day on, Daniel worked while other boys played. His dream was simple: build a farm large enough to feed his family, pay off their debts, send his siblings to school, and let his mother finally rest. Daniel had deep faith. Every morning he opened his father's old Bible and read Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. For 7 years, Daniel saved every coin. He repaired fences, delivered goods, cleaned stables, and took any honest work he could find. Finally, he rented a piece of land south of town. It was not perfect, but to Daniel it felt like a miracle. He bought seeds, repaired an old well, built a fence, plowed the soil, and planted corn, potatoes, beans, and pumpkins. Every morning he prayed, Lord, bless the work of my hands. I only ask for enough to care for my family. Soon, green shoots rose from the soil. Daniel imagined his mother resting on the porch, his siblings walking into school, and the family debt finally gone. But then the sky changed. That summer, Willow Creek faced the worst drought anyone could remember. Rain did not come. The ground cracked like an open wound. The green leaves turned yellow, then brown, then died beneath the brutal sun. Daniel refused to quit. He carried water bucket by bucket. He woke earlier, slept later, ate less, and prayed harder. One night, kneeling in the dry field, he read Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. But the rain still did not come. By the end of summer, the farm was dead. No corn, no potatoes, no harvest, no hope. Every dollar Daniel had saved for 7 years vanished into cracked soil. That evening, he stood in the empty field where his greatest dream had once been. He dropped to his knees, grabbed a handful of dry dirt, and wept. Lord, I prayed, I worked, I trusted you. So why did you let everything die? Did you not hear me? No answer came. Only dry wind moving across a dead field and a young man feeling forgotten by God. Because Daniel still owed money for the land and seeds, he had to find work quickly. The only job available was working for Samuel Brooks, an elderly man deeply respected in Willow Creek. Samuel had once been a pastor and had helped many families through grief and disappointment. Daniel's work was humble: repairing fences, sweeping the yard, keeping records, delivering letters, and helping Samuel meet townspeople. At first, Daniel felt ashamed. He had planned to become a farm owner. Now he was working on another man's land. Some young men laughed behind his back. Daniel Carter, the great farmer, now sweeps yards for old Samuel. Daniel heard those words. They cut deeply, but he lowered his head and kept working. What Daniel did not know was that in the season when he felt lowered, God was preparing him for something greater. Like Joseph in the Bible, who was sold by his brothers, falsely accused and thrown into prison, yet that painful road led him to save many lives. Genesis 50:20 says, You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Day by day beside Samuel, Daniel learned what his old field could never teach him. He learned to listen before speaking, settle disputes, manage money, plan ahead, and understand that a true leader is not the loudest man, but the one people can trust when life feels uncertain. One afternoon, Samuel asked Daniel to bring medicine to Abigail Miller, an 80-year-old widow near the river. Almost everyone had forgotten her. Daniel noticed her loneliness, so he sat down and listened. Abigail told him about old storms, old families, and hidden paths through the pine woods. Then she mentioned a valley on the far side of the river, about 3 miles from town. It had once been called Grace Valley because beneath the ground was an underground spring that never ran dry. Years ago, families had farmed there and harvested more than anyone expected. But after the old bridge broke and people moved away, the valley was forgotten. Something stirred inside Daniel. The next morning before sunrise, he followed Abigail's path. He crossed the riverbank, pushed through thick trees, and suddenly stopped. Before him was a green valley, completely different from the dry fields around Willow Creek. The soil was soft, dark, and moist. The grass grew high. Wild plants were healthy and green. Daniel knelt down, touched the damp earth, and cried, not from despair, but from understanding. Maybe God had not taken his dream away to hurt him. Maybe God had been pulling him away from land too small and too dry, so he could lead him to hidden water. Daniel remembered Isaiah 43:19. Behold, I am doing a new thing. I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Now he was standing inside that promise. Daniel returned to Samuel and explained everything: the spring, the soil, the broken road, the bridge, and how the valley could feed not only his family but the town. Samuel listened and said, Daniel, failure did not make you smaller. It revealed who you truly are. When you lost your farm, you still worked faithfully. When people laughed, you kept your dignity. When you met a forgotten widow, you stopped to listen. God often hides great doors behind small acts others overlook. Samuel helped Daniel receive permission to farm Grace Valley and introduced him to 5 young men who needed work. Together, they repaired the road, rebuilt the bridge, guided water from the spring into the rows, and planted new crops. Every morning, Daniel still prayed, but his prayer had changed. He no longer said, Lord, make my plan work. He simply said, Lord, lead me into your plan. That year's harvest became something Willow Creek never forgot. Grace Valley produced more than any field in the region. Daniel's family had enough to eat. Poor families received baskets of food. Daniel paid off his debt, repaired his mother's house, and sent his siblings back to school. Later, a county agricultural officer came to see the valley. He expected to meet a lucky farmer. Instead, he saw a leader. He saw a man who could manage people, divide work, calculate water, encourage broken young men, and turn forgotten land into life. A few weeks later, Daniel was invited to lead an agricultural program for 5 poor towns. The position came with stable pay, housing, transportation, and the chance to help hundreds of families. Daniel was silent when he heard the offer. He remembered the dead field, Samuel's yard, the mocking voices, Abigail's story, and the Green Valley. Suddenly, everything connected. If his first farm had succeeded, Daniel would have become only a farmer with one good harvest. He would never have worked with Samuel, learned leadership, met Abigail, found Grace Valley, or been prepared to serve more people than his own family. What he once called disappointment was actually redirection. What he once called loss was protection. What he once thought was God's silence was God's quiet arrangement. Like Israel before the Red Sea, Daniel thought he had reached a dead end. But Exodus 14:13 says, Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. Sometimes God opens the road right where we thought there was no road. Years later, Daniel would say, I once thought God had disappointed me, but now I understand that door closed because it would have led me into a life too small. God did not destroy my plan because he hated me. He broke it because he loved me enough not to let me remain trapped in something less than what he had prepared. Then he would read Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Maybe today you are standing in your own dry field. A relationship you prayed for still fell apart. A job disappeared. A door you thought was a blessing closed in your face. Do not be too quick to believe God has forgotten you. Maybe he is redirecting you. Maybe he is saving you from a road too small. Maybe he is leading you to your own Grace Valley, a place with hidden water you never knew existed. Joseph had to pass through the pit before the palace. Moses had to face the Red Sea before the waters parted. David had to live in caves before he sat on the throne. And Daniel had to lose his first field before he found the Valley of Grace. So if a door closes, do not lie forever in front of it weeping. Stand up, wipe your tears, and ask God, where are you leading me? God is not disappointing you, he is changing your direction. And where he is taking you is far greater than where you were trying to stay.